weather is starting to cool, and leaves begin to change color and fall from their trees. It is that time of year again, and with Halloween just around the corner, the excitement for the fall season builds. Leslie Bannatyne writes in her article, "It is late October, and people whisper, this is the season of witchery, the night the spirits of the dead rise from their graves and hover behind the hedges." The history and the amount of spending around the holiday has resulted in studies on the spending in the U.S. and the subtle uprisings against the celebration of the holiday. Okay. Throughout my speech, I will cover a brief history of the origins, money spent during this holiday season, and examples of people against this beloved American holiday. From my results of the survey I put out, I could see that the number of people who did not know the origins of this holiday outnumbered the amount who did. So to start, we will talk about the origins. This holiday dates back nearly 20 centuries. Leslie Bannatyne writes in her article, "When Halloween mischief turned to mayhem, Halloween was born nearly 2,000 years ago in the Celtic countries of the northeastern Europe." In this quote, she is referring to the Scottish festival of Samhain. This festival is celebrated on November 1st, and it marks the end of summer and the beginning of winter in the Celtic year. John Bernstein writes in his article, "My pagan prayers at the turn of the Celtic year. The fire we lit on Halloween night was intended to warm the returning dead when they came back to their home place on this one night of the year." In this quote, we can see that some of these beliefs from this ancient festival carry over into our Halloween and how we believe that the spirits of the dead come back to the living world for one night. Leslie Bannatyne highlights some American history in her article when saying immigrants from Ireland and Scotland brought their Halloween superstitions to America in the 18th and 19th century. So as people began to move around the globe and move to different countries, their cultures and celebrations and festivals were brought along with them to these different countries. And the immigrants of the New World were the first their children were the first to celebrate the at the time prankster holiday. Some examples of pranks pulled back then were coating chapel seats with molasses in 1887, exploding pipe bombs for fun in 1888, and painting black paint on new houses' sidings in 1891. As Americans began to move into more crowded and urban areas, the pranks also evolved along with that. They included pulling fire alarms, throwing bricks through shop windows, and youngsters went around begging for sweets and money, and if they didn't get that, they would threaten vandalism. Eventually, trick-or-treating was first advertised in a magazine article from the American House in 1930s. In 1950, President Truman recommended Halloween be repurposed to Youth Honor Day, and in 1962, the mayor of New York wanted to shift the emphasis of the night to charity. People wanted a safer holiday, so they would create radio programs and cartoons aimed at younger audiences to promote Halloween trick-or-treating so they could go out and have fun. Many of you in the responses from my survey I put out said you no longer go trick-or-treating, and this goes along with the evolution of the holiday and how it started out with older people doing the pranks and that were a little bit more dangerous, and as it grew and evolved a little bit more, they wanted a safer holiday that included more age groups, so now it is more aimed at the younger groups. Now that we know a little bit more about the history, we'll move on to the spending around this holiday. In the past 2 decades, the spending has grown significantly. Becky Evankamp's article from 1998, Spooky Spending, she states about $2.5 billion is spent during the Halloween season, making it the second biggest revenue generator at retail after Christmas, and this fact is still true today. Marie Punet's article from 2003, titled "Today's Halloween is So Beloved It's Scary," she poses the question, how nuts are Americans for Halloween? About $7 billion worth of nuts. In these 2 examples I provided, it is easy to see the significant amount of increase from just $2.5 billion to $7 billion in 5 years. Marie Punet quotes Ohio resident Jill Jonas Ranger when talking about reasons why the spending has increased. She says, "It's fun, fun, fun without the guilt, guilt, guilt." She's talking about how in this holiday, you don't have to really focus on a spiritual meaning compared to Christmas or Easter. That is less commercialized and there's a more spiritual meaning behind it. But with Halloween, you don't really have to keep that. and you can just focus on having fun. Another reason why spending has increased is because the average household now has 2 working parents, meaning there is less free time to make homemade treats and decorations to hand out on Halloween, so they turn to more store-bought goods for convenience. In a recent article, Halloween spending soars as celebrations near pre-pandemic levels from the National Retail Federation. Customer spending on Halloween-related items is expected to reach an all-time high of $10.14 billion, up from last year's $8.5 billion. The reasoning for this is because last year with the pandemic, there was a lack of celebration around this holiday, and people are trying to make up for that this holiday because it is safer. The article also states, on average, customers plan to spend $102.74 on costumes, candy, decorations, and greeting cards, and the average household with children plans to spend about over $150. In the National Retail Federation's research, they also found that we are expected to spend $3.32 billion on costumes, $3.17 billion on decorations, and a total of $3 billion on candy, just alone this year. The National Federation found that the interest in pet costumes also remains high, with 1 in 5 people intending to dress their pets up for Halloween this year, with the most popular costume being a pumpkin. Despite all the love and adoration for this holiday, there are still some naysayers on its celebration. People against this holiday do not like it because of its pagan and witchcraft beliefs. In the article, Schools Cancel Halloween from the Department of Petty Controversies, schools around the country are attempting to ban costumes, candy on what is surely one of most kids' favorite days of the year. An example of this would be Spring Hill Elementary School in Pennsylvania. Letters were sent home to parents explaining the cancellation of costumes at school and handing out candy due to safety reasons. A spokesman for the school later explains that they know it is important to the elementary learning, but they must do so in a manner that is safe and appropriate for all children. Another example of a group against Halloween would be Christian evangelicals. Stephen Vanguard says they aim to take back Halloween from the wrong side of supernatural and present the more Christian side. These groups make haunted houses, and they call them hell houses or judgment houses, and they're aimed at steering younger people away from things like abortion and promiscuity. But for the most part, people who celebrate this holiday aim to make it fun and inclusive for all age groups. Throughout my speech, I covered a short history of Halloween, some expected spending amounts for this year, and a few examples of groups against the celebration of this holiday. With the info I shared today, I hope that at the end of this week, all of you can go out and enjoy this Halloween after learning a little bit more about this beloved autumn holiday. Thank you for listening to my speech.